The General Hospital recap for Monday, August 18th, says that Jocelyn, Jax and Vaughn's dead body disposal will result in a surprising shower scene. So here's how the drama unfolded. Ada Justine Turner will eavesdrop at Sonny Corinthos' house as Drew threatens to imprison Golden Boy, Michael Corinthos, for assault, unless Sonny agrees to his demands. Drew will finally insist on Willow Tate receiving generous visiting rights. Drew will also urge Sonny to sell his peers to Jen Sidwell and go on an extended vacation somewhere else. After Drew mentions his conversation with Wiley Corinthos, which riles Michael, Sonny will be furious that his grandson was used in Drew's deceit. Sonny will warn Drew that his strategy would not convince Willow to take him back, and will refuse to give in to his demands. When Sonny kicks Drew out, Ada Turner will appear from behind the corner and reel over Drew attempting to extort Sonny. Sonny will remind out that Ada Turner got the opportunity to witness the real Drew tonight, but he will suggest she cannot do anything with this new information. Drew would just claim that Sonny bribed Turner, making it appear to be a case of corruption. Ada Turner will appear concerned about what Sonny might try to do instead, and she will advise him against retaliating. Stella Henry will agree to answer the fraud agent's inquiries, so she will be taken away to speak privately. Jordan Ashford will interrupt Curtis Ashford and Portia Robinson's bedroom bonding with a phone call regarding Stella's condition, so they will both go to the hospital. Brooke Lynn Quartermain will speak with Flora Gardens at the Home and Heart Studio, where she will be encouraged to see things from Lois Cerullo's point of view and restore their connection. Nearby, Maxie Jones will meet with Martin Gray to see if she can be kicked out of Deception for going against her partner's desires. Martin would admit that they don't have the authority to do so, but he warns that it might still harm her relationships. Maxie will want to be open about what happened with Sonny's investment at Deception, so she will ask Martin to set up a private meeting with the DA's office. Brooke Lynn will get interested in Maxie and Martin's conversation when she appears, but Maxie will be taken away for a TV appearance. Sidwell and Lucy Coe will flirt at Windmere until she needs to go for the Home and Heart segment in the studio. Sidwell promises to watch the show and kiss her to wish her success. When Marco Rios walks in, he will notice the connection between Sidwell and Lucy and will ask his father when she leaves. Drew will stroll in with the most recent Sonny and Michael news. Although Drew intends to send Michael to prison and reclaim Willow's children, Sidwell will explain why triggering Sonny's revenge is a dangerous idea. After Drew leaves, Marco will speak with Sidwell about their goals no longer aligning with Drew's, and Sidwell will imply about Drew becoming a burden. While on the air, Maxie will apply some face cream as part of the presentation and suddenly appear ill. When Maxie loses consciousness and collapses, everyone in the studio will panic. Martin will next proceed to the hospital, where he will attempt to take Stella's case but will be denied due to his involvement in the insurance fraud probe. At the Five Poppies Resort, Britt Westbourne will try to divert Pascal's attention away from Jason Morgan by making up explanations about the lab, but Pascal will swiftly return to Jason. In Jocelyn and Vaughn's suite, she will be tortured by thoughts of shooting Cyrus Renault after shooting the hitman in the throat. The hitman will be unable to answer questions, so Vaughn will smother him with a pillow and ask Joss for assistance in throwing the body down a nearby cliff. Jocelyn will also persuade Vaughn that she can speak with Britt and get her to open up about the research that Professor Henry Hank Dalton has been working on. Vaughn and Jocelyn will postpone their return home in the hope that disposing of the hitman buys them some time. After Vaughn sends Jocelyn to get cleaned up, he will find her fully clothed in the shower, frightened by what has just happened. Vaughn will also enter the water fully clothed, holding Jocelyn close to comfort her. Back with Jason, he'll appear in Britt's room looking for her, and they'll lock eyes once more. According to General Hospital spoilers, Jason and Britt will have some interesting chats, so stay tuned. General Hospital spoilers and updates hint at the truth. Is Peter August back in action, dictating the shots for Britt Westbourne? Could it be that Britt's half-brother is in charge? Soaps are known for unexpected resurrections. Soaps are famous for reversing catastrophic situations in unique ways, so it's easy to imagine GH chronicling Peter's death alongside Britt's. This appears to be a plot that will only get more absurd as it progresses. While many fans formerly believed Caesar Faison could be the enigmatic leader, their viewpoints have recently shifted. The boss appears to be more harsh now that Britt is resisting so vehemently. Britt is facing some serious dangers, as her medication may be withheld if her lab tests are not finished. Faison refused to turn down a Huntington's cure because he had one as well. Daddy Faison's threat to stop providing Britt with what we can assume is her miraculous Huntington's disease treatment appears to be a bit drastic. After all, he too has experienced it. Nonetheless, we can be confident in Peter's willingness to withhold such dosages. While Peter may be interested in the prospect of sibling bonding through this project, he may also have limitations. In addition, we should consider other evidence that point to Peter August's reappearance. One such clue was revealed during a SOD interview with GH co-head writers Elizabeth Corte and Chris Van Etten. Valuable work but extremely dangerous. The project at hand is likely to be both extremely valuable and extremely dangerous. It is the type of undertaking that would require someone to be both insane and evil to undertake. That's exactly the type of person Britt and Professor Henry Dalton are working with, the writing team stated. Peter obviously exhibits the characteristics of being both insane and wicked, which is noteworthy. Van Etten and Corte noted that the Faison/Albrecht family is only beginning, which could be another signal. Peter is the son of Faison and Alex Marek, hence he is a member of the family through his father. Maxie Jones is facing an upcoming dilemma, which may tie to a Peter return plot. Kirsten Storms has hinted at a surprising occurrence that will undoubtedly elicit passionate reactions from fans following her character's temporary leave. Jen Sidwell appears to be planning an abduction of Maxie in order to prevent her from providing testimony to authorities concerning deception and Sonny Corinthos. If Sidwell is truly collaborating with Peter, this might lead to some interesting twists. Peter was obsessed with Maxie in the same way that his father, Caesar, was with Anna Devane. He would undoubtedly prefer to imprison her to his own private cage in some hidden hideout. Finally, there are real reasons to assume that Peter is not as dead as the audience thought. Fans will be eager for further information on the enigmatic boss, so stay tuned for the most recent details on his identity. According to General Hospital spoilers, Jason Morgan will seek answers now that he has arrived at the Five Poppies Resort, so stay tuned. Vaughn had survived due to her, but the threat was not ended. Their carefully planned cover, designed to infiltrate the resort and obtain information about Professor Henry Dalton's hidden tech project, had been exposed. The assassin's presence was proof of this. Vaughn, ever the seasoned agent, had seized command, his voice low and intense as he smothered the attacker with a pillow to keep him from speaking. Jocelyn had watched, her stomach twisting, as they hauled the body to a cliff's edge and threw it into the ocean below. The waters swallowed the proof, but they couldn't wash away the weight of her actions. She had been exposed to violence before thanks to Port Charles, but this was different. This was the cold, calculated world of espionage, where every decision had ramifications she wasn't sure she could handle. Back in their suite, Jocelyn took refuge in the shower, hoping that the hot water would wash away the blood and dread that clung to her. But it did not. She sat on the tiled floor, totally dressed, the spray drenching her while she stared blankly at the wall. The sound of the water was a thick roar in her ears, drowning out everything but the memories. Cyrus's eyes were wide with horror as her bullet ripped into him. She observed the hitman's motionless body, with Vaughn's hands forcing the pillow down. She saw herself, a girl who had once dreamed of a regular existence, now entangled in a web of secrets and death. The door creaked open, revealing Vaughn's silhouette through the steam. He didn't say anything at first, simply knelt beside her, and his presence grounded her in unexpected ways. "Are you okay?" he inquired, his voice as gentle as she had ever heard it. She shook her head, unable to speak, and he remained there, the water also soaking his clothes, a silent guarantee that she wasn't alone. Vaughn's list of adversaries grew, and Jocelyn began to understand why. He was a man who operated in the shadows, with a complicated history of clandestine operations and betrayals. The assassin wasn't just any thug. He was a message, a warning from someone who wanted Vaughn to die. Perhaps it was related to the WSB, or maybe it was personal. Jocelyn had no idea, and Vaughn was not providing answers. His mysterious edge, which had once been appealing, now felt like a liability. She trusted him because Jack Brennan had assigned them together, but trust was a delicate thing in this line of business. Every step they made seemed to lead them deeper into a conspiracy that extended beyond the resort and Dalton's idea, into something considerably more frightening. And now that their cover was exposed, they were running out of time. Jocelyn's musings were interrupted by Vaughn's hand on her shoulder, a gentle squeeze that brought her back to reality. "We need to move," he replied, his tone stern but not harsh. "Britt is here. You saw her. We can't let that slip." Britt Westbourne's survival when everyone expected her to be dead was an unexpected problem. Jocelyn noticed her sitting by the pool, flirting with Vaughn, her laughter piercing the air like a knife. Jocelyn was startled by the sight, not just because Britt was supposed to be a ghost, but also because her existence indicated their goal was about to become much more complicated. Britt was bound to Jason Morgan, Port Charles, and a past that Jocelyn couldn't shake. And suddenly she was here at the center of their scheme like an unfit puzzle piece. They dried off, changed, and snuck out into the night, the resort's gleaming exterior concealing the peril that lay beyond. Jocelyn's mind raced as they hurried through the shadows, her senses heightened by the adrenaline that hadn't stopped flowing since the shooting. She couldn't shake the idea that they were being watched, that every guest sipping cocktails by the pool or dancing in the ballroom was a threat. Vaughn led the way, his movements crisp, his gaze searching every angle. He was good at it, maybe even too good. Jocelyn wondered what he'd done to earn enemies who dispatched assassins at night. She wanted to ask and demand answers, but the task came first. Always the mission. Back in Port Charles, the world was collapsing in a unique way. Maxie Jones stood on the set of Home and Heart, the studio lights shining brightly on her face as she prepared to introduce Deception's latest product, a face cream dubbed New Youth Truth. The cameras were rolling, the crowd was watching, and Maxie was in her element, her face beaming as she spoke with Lucy Coe. But something seemed odd. She'd been feeling it all day. A nagging disquiet, like if the universe was shifting slightly off axis. She brushed it aside and concentrated on the pitch, moving her hands to apply the cream to her face. The texture was smooth, almost exquisite, but the moment it touched her skin, she felt dizzy. Her vision faded, her knees weakened, and before she could say anything, she was falling, the studio floor coming up to meet her. The set burst into mayhem. Lucy shouted, the team scrambled, and the live feed turned to static as Maxie lay lifeless, her face pale under the intense lights. The tub of cream sat innocently on the table, its contents marked with a question mark. Was it an accident or a manufacturing error? Was it something more sinister? Jen Sidwell, the intriguing billionaire linked to Sonny Corinthos, has been pressuring Deception to remain quiet about his illicit investment in the company. Maxie had been outspoken about going to the police, which had put her at odds with Brooklyn Quartermain and the rest of the Deception team. Sidwell's involvement in the Home and Heart segment had triggered red flags, and now that Maxie was unconscious, those flags were screaming warnings. Felicia Scorpio lingered by her daughter's bedside, her heart in her throat, as physicians ran tests. Max Scorpio, who is normally so stable, paced the hall, his mind racing with options. Had Sidwell poisoned Maxie to silence her? The thought was inconceivable, but Port Charles was a community founded on unthinkable acts. Felicia clasped Maxie's hand, offering assurances that she would be fine, and that they would figure it out. However, the fear in her eyes betrayed her. Maxie was a fighter, but whatever occurred on that set had left everyone who cared about her shaken. The doctors were perplexed, their preliminary tests inconclusive, and the clock was ticking. Across town, Sonny Corinthos was dealing with his own issues. Drew Kane's threats loomed over him like a storm cloud, each more outrageous than the next. Drew wanted Sonny to sell his peers to Sidwell and leave Port Charles, a demand motivated by both power and personal vendettas. Sonny wasn't one to give in to ultimatums, but Drew's mention of Michael's son Wiley had touched a chord. Using a child as leverage was a low blow, even for Drew, who had become more brutal since his political dreams took hold. Sonny's rage surged, but he kept it under control, mentally calculating the best way to turn the tables. Another issue was Ada Justine Turner's eavesdropping from the shadows. Donna's naive appeal had enticed her to come to Sonny's place, and she had gotten a rude awakening. She was ambitious, intelligent, and dangerous in her own way, and Sonny knew she would take advantage of everything she heard. Jocelyn and Vaughn followed Britt along the cobblestone path of the Five Poppies Resort, their footfall hushed. The night was filled with the hum of cicadas and the distant crash of waves, but Jocelyn's attention was laser-focused. She didn't trust Britt after what had happened in Port Charles, and the fact that she was still alive left her with more questions than answers. Had she feigned death? Was she cooperating with Dalton? Or was she just another pawn in a greater game? Vaughn motioned for Jocelyn to stand back as he knocked on the door, his rifle concealed but ready. Britt responded, her look turning from astonishment to suspicion as she noticed Vaughn and then Jocelyn. "What are you doing here?" she inquired, her tone tinged with concern. Jocelyn did not waste time. "You're supposed to be dead," she replied, her tone flat but her eyes full of accusation. Britt's face became pale, but she quickly recovered, stepping aside to let them enter. The property was sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that provided views of the moonlit ocean. It was a great cry from the turmoil of Port Charles, but danger always seemed to follow them. Britt's story emerged in pieces. She'd faked her death to avoid a threat she wouldn't name, a move that brought her to Croatia and a job at the resort's lab. She claimed she was not involved in Dalton's idea, but Jocelyn wasn't buying it. There was too much at stake and too many lies were building up. Vaughn was all business. He probed Britt for information, his questions keen and relentless. Jocelyn observed him, observing how he blended charm and intimidation, which was a talent she was still developing. But her thoughts kept returning to the shower, to the way he had sat with her, without judgment or demands. Despite her instincts to stay away, something about Vaughn drew her in. He was older, more experienced, and had a past she could only speculate about. But there was an unmistakable and deadly spark between them. She forced the thought away and focused on Britt, who was becoming increasingly upset by the minute. Back in Port Charles, the hospital was bustling with activity. Martin Gray, summoned by Felicia, arrived to represent Stella Henry, who was facing insurance fraud allegations. The claims were a distraction, keeping the hospital staff on edge while Maxie's status remained unknown. Martin's presence provided some comfort, although his attention was divided. He was also caught up in the deception issue, persuading Maxie not to go to the police before she collapsed. Now, as he worked through Stella's case, he couldn't avoid the sensation that everything was interconnected. Sidwell, the cream, the threats looming over deception. Sonny, meanwhile, was planning his next move. Drew's demands were an issue, but Sidwell posed the greater menace. The man's influence was spreading like a virus, infecting every part of Port Charles. Sonny knew he needed to act, but with Justine Turner snooping around and Michael's devotion in doubt, his options were limited. He scheduled a meeting with Jason Morgan, who was still suffering from his own experience at the Five Poppies Resort. Jason had caught eyes with Britt, which had shocked him to the core. She was alive and the consequences were overwhelming. He didn't trust her after everything, yet he couldn't deny the allure she still had for him. Their talk had been quick and uncomfortable, with Britt dodging his queries and Jason cautioning her about the danger she was in. He wasn't sure if she'd listen, but he couldn't remain to find out, especially with Jocelyn and Vaughn in the crossfire. Jocelyn was well aware that her purpose was unraveling. The resort was a powder keg with Dalton's project in the core. Whatever he was working on, whispers of sophisticated technology, something that could change the balance of power, had piqued the interest of the WSB and, it appeared, other players. The assassination was only the beginning. Jocelyn felt the weight of her decisions, the lives she had killed and the secrets she kept from her family. Carly would never comprehend this existence, this world of shadows and falsehoods. Jocelyn had lied to her mother about the WSB, Vaughn, and everything. And now, with Britt involved, the falsehoods were stacking up. Vaughn sensed her uncertainty and doubt. "You're doing fine," he murmured as they exited Britt's property, the crisp night air brushing across their skin. "You saved my life back there." "That's not nothing." Jocelyn nodded, but the words seemed hollow. She wasn't sure who she was saving or why she was fighting. The objective was meant to be straightforward. Get close to Dalton and discover his secrets, but nothing was apparent anymore. Not Britt, Vaughn, or even herself. Maxie's condition improved at Port Charles, but uncertainties lingered. The lotion tested positive for a rare toxin that did not appear in normal testing. Sidwell's name popped up repeatedly, casting a cloud over the probe. Felicia and Mac were tenacious in investigating his connections and objectives. They had no idea about Jocelyn's objective or the web that connected Port Charles to Croatia, but they felt it, just like you do before a storm. Jocelyn and Vaughn returned to their suite, the tension evident. They were partners and comrades, but something was brewing that neither of them could ignore. As they discussed their future steps, Jocelyn couldn't help but worry if she was in over her head. Vaughn's opponents were closing in, and she became caught in the crossfire. Maxie's demise, Britt's reappearance, Sidwell's schemes. They were all linked, like a puzzle with too many missing pieces. And Jocelyn, whether she liked it or not, was in the thick of it all.